Joe Fisher had researched metaphysics for many years before encountering the world of channeling. In his book, Fisher tells how he was invited to the home of a woman he calls Aviva, who claimed that there were entities from another dimension speaking through her. A small group of people gathered weekly to witness the various voices who would take control of Aviva.
I was so impressed with the accents, the personalities, the different languages that were produced by Aviva in her trance state, that I said to my friends, and among them several journalists, "You've got to see this. You've got to come to this house and witness this for yourself," which they did. And the group, by me introducing people, by these other people also introducing other people, the group swelled to close to 30 at its peak.
He phoned up and said, you know, I've found this group that meets on Friday night, and you know, it's just great, and you've got to come and see what's happening. And I think you know, the intimation was that this was almost a secret society.
And so you can imagine there was Aviva lying down on her Chesterfield with her little pink slippers pointed towards the ceiling, going into trance, and she would switch from one voice to another, that is different guide, so-called guide, speaking through her, as each different person in the room would speak, and they would go around the room different, and they would never introduce themselves. A voice would come out, and immediately the voice that she was producing would change in accordance with the voice that asked the question.
And all of these entities, these beings, were what we would call inside of her physical body. We would see a lot of changes that would take over. It wasn't just the voices, but in being relatively close to her as these beings were coming through, I could see the difference. I could see the characteristics of these entities as they came through. Her body and particularly her face that would change.
Her eyes were closed. She couldn't see this. It was all done. I don't know how it was done. To this day, I have many questions about just what was going on. But all I know is that Laurence Olivier, on his finest day at the Old Vic, could never have produced this array of different inflections and voices and languages within a space of an hour.
Each one of us had a major guide. Like Russell was her guide, and Tuktu was mine.
And I spoke to the entity that came forward, Russell Parnick, and he described himself as a sheep farmer from the last century. That was his last incarnation. And he proceeded to tell me that I had a guide too who was looking after me on the earthbound plane, or rather, the guide was in the disembodied realm. And her name was Philippa, she was Greek, that her and I had been together in Greece in the 18th century, and it was now her responsibility in this other realm to oversee my spiritual development while I was on Earth.
Fisher was intrigued by the entity claiming to be Philippa, his spirit guide. While it was speaking through Aviva, he taped the voice and took it to a linguistic specialist at the University of Toronto to verify its authenticity.
This man's name is Dr. George Thaniel, and he's a native-born Greek himself. So I thought the perfect, the linguistics professor who is a Greek by birth. He listened to 2 tapes of Philippa speaking, and he said, in part, this is a native-born Greek woman speaking. So I thought, well, there is proof that Aviva is not concocting this. She hasn't just been to the library, read some Greek, and then is making it up for me. And even if she were to learn Greek, she would be unable to speak with the voice of a native-born Greek.